Attention. Thank you. Attention. This will be a virtual meeting of the Marinwood CSD Board of Directors pursuant to Executive Order N2920 issued by the Governor of the State of California, hopefully. There will not be a public location for participating in this meeting. Any interested member of the public can participate telephonically or via internet by utilizing the web link or dial-in information printed on this agenda. At points in the meeting, when the meeting chair requests public comment, members of the public participating in the live meeting, either via internet or telephone, shall indicate their desire to speak. If participating via internet, please click the raise hand feature located within the Zoom application screen. If connected via telephone, please dial *9. And for that, I call to order. And could we have a roll call, please?
Sure. Board President, sorry?
Thank you. No, thank you.
Board President Shea,
I'm here.
Director Case,
Here.
Director Kilkenny,
Here.
Director Oyserman,
I'm here.
and Director Ruggieri.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, before we adopt the agenda, I'm going to turn it over to Eric. He has a couple of words to say.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Just before we started tonight's meeting, I wanted to take a brief moment, if we could, to recognize the loss of one of our summer camp staff members. On the evening of Wednesday, August 11th, Lucas Talbot tragically took his own life. Lucas was 17 years old and would have been entering his senior year in high school just a few days after this tragic incident. By all accounts, Lucas was a remarkable young man, well-liked and well-respected. Lucas's family, friends, and loved ones have been and shall remain in our thoughts. I humbly request that we begin tonight's meeting by observing a moment of silence in recognition of Lucas Talbot, his family, his friends, and his loved ones, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
May I add one thing to that?
Absolutely.
There was a friend of mine's son worked in the same camp as Lucas, grew up with Lucas, and was told the end of the day that it happened. And the mother called me and told me just how remarkable Eric was, all the staff and everyone in handling the situation. I'm like shook up because as a mom, it's hard, but I just want to let you know, like, reiterate from even the mother, our community, how much you guys just stepped up and handled this and supported the whole staff of that child, like the gentleman. So thank you very much for all you guys do for us, for our community, and for the whole summer camp. So thank you.
Thank you.
That was similar to what I was going to say, and the fact that it was handled in such a way that those people who needed to know knew when they needed to know, and the kids who were too young to possibly process this were spared having to have that conversation. But my thoughts and heart goes out to the family. I know that my daughter was in the girl associated camp and periodically interacted with him and had come home with wonderful things to say about him and stories. So he was a wonderful child, and I am very sorry that they have to go through this.
Just to add my 2 cents here, like Lucas was a dear friend of my daughter, so I really appreciate everything that the staff has done in helping everyone. But I also think it bears mentioning that the 2 remembrances that the community came together for were both in the Marinwood Park. One was in the main part of the park, and then the other one was in what used to be referred to as the fireman's picnic area. I'm not sure if it is anymore, but I think that just goes to say a lot about what we have, and that as a community, it's extremely welcoming, and even in the worst of times, people can rely on what we have in the park and what we provide people as a community.
Said everyone.
And I'll add too, I mean, just to reiterate how incredibly well such a tragic event was handled by the camp staff. It was really remarkable. Both of my children were at camp all summer, and neither one even noticed that anything was amiss. I think my older daughter, who's 8, said that, one of the camp counselors was sad and said that it was just a really bad day. And so I think this also speaks to the level of maturity and training that these camp counselors have in handling something that no high schooler should ever have to handle or experience. So my appreciation, thoughts, and condolences as well. So, well, for me.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. On to the agenda. We're going to adopt. Does anybody have any changes to make? I guess hearing none, let's adopt the agenda. Okay, on to the consent calendar. We have to approve that, so I'll need a motion. Before we have the motion, would anyone chime in? Any questions, any comments? Hearing none. I'll ask for a motion to adopt, to approve.
I motion to approve the consent calendar, which includes the draft minutes of the regular meeting from August 10th, 2021, that was remote, and the bills paid numbers 5659 through 5753.
I'll second.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from the public?
Yeah, 1 second, please, Bill. Stephen.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I
Hi,
guess,
Stephen.
thanks
Hello.
for finally recognizing me. I actually did want to say something about that tragedy that happened to Lucas. I didn't know him, obviously, but I wanted to relate my daughter, who she's 25 right now. And during her time at Miller Creek Middle School and high school, she experienced 3 suicides, 2 close personal friends of hers and a teacher. She's also experienced the loss of friends through overdoses and other, bad stuff. And I bring this up just to, I guess, as a community, we really do need to be aware of what's happening out there. I think our kids are under tremendous pressure from various sources. And I think COVID has actually made things a lot worse. And it's really hard to make sense of this all. But I know from my daughter's experience, she's carried forth such enormous tragedy in her life that I've personally never experienced. And so we have to keep our eyes on the kids and, do good things for our kids. Our camps are great. Community building is fantastic. It's the connections that count. And anyhow, thanks everyone for doing what you do. And we'll get through this as a community. Hug your kids. That's all I had to say. I don't have anything to say on the consent calendar and the agenda.
Thanks, Stephen. Okay. On. Where's my good friend Tiff?
I'm here. Are you ready?
We are.
Board President Shea,
Aye.
Director Case.
I think I have to abstain because I wasn't here at the last meeting, so I'm going to abstain.
Okay,
Eric's shaking his head no that you don't have to, but
You don't
I
have
just
to.
feel like-
You're welcome to, but you don't have to.
Yeah, I just feel like because I wasn't there to know what the minutes, I wouldn't know if the minutes reflect the accurate meeting or not. I mean, I assume they do, but I'll just abstain. It's not going to matter.
noted. Director Kilkenny,
Aye.
Director Oysterman,
aye.
Director Ruggieri.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. On to public comment, open time for items not on the agenda.
Yeah, 1 second, please.
Yeah, so I'll try. Hi, so to try to get kind of change gears here a little bit. You know, if you were going to sell your house, it would be the first thing that you would do to your house. You'd probably fix all the stuff that you'd overlooked over the years. You'd paint some rooms. You'd plant flowers in the garden. You'd make everything look really, really nice, and that's going to attract buyers. That's going to put more money in your pocket. Well, someone's actually going to do that in the next few days, but we can actually improve our community substantially by upgrading our physical space in the parks and our programs and our community connections. Maybe tonight's theme should be community connections, but I would like to say that, you know, we live in a community where every house is going to push $1 million plus, maybe several $1 million. And that's pretty astounding when you think about it. And ask yourself, are we, okay, our houses are worth that much, but how do we, what does the rest of the community look like? Are our trails groomed? Are our programs as fine as they could be? I guess what I'm saying is improving our district, improving the parks and open space has a direct link to not only our quality of life, but actually our financial well-being. And I would urge everyone to not look at the CSD for what did last year or the way it's always been, but look at it as, hey, what could it be? What could we do to make it better? Tonight I was talking to Barbara, a woman in a wheelchair. She's a friend of a lot of people here in town, and we were talking about access, and she's actually telling me how she was frustrated that she can't go certain places anymore because of her wheelchair. And that's certainly one thing that we can do quality wise to build our community and to build our park and really make us $1 million community desirable for everyone to live in. Thanks.
Thank you, Stephen. Anybody else, Eric?
No, sir.
Nope. On to district matters. Oh, it's the district manager report.
Yeah, thank you. Let me get to it. Yeah, just a couple items of note for this month, just to make the board aware in case you weren't already. Marin County Public Health Department, the public health officer did release a health order on August 20th, 2021, that requires all Marin County public sector employers such as Marinwood Community Services District to verify the vaccination status of all employees. That actually takes effect tomorrow. We have collected this data. We do have these records. I do want to note that while we do maintain these records and they will be released to public health upon their request, this is not public information. It is actually protected and will not be released to the public by request. Just making the board aware that that is something that we are having to do. On a fire prevention management update, just, a couple quick notes that, to complement the open space goat grazing, we're continuing to work with San Rafael Fire and their vegetation management specialists for, kind of what we have called phase 2 of our planned fire prevention efforts. We are in process and through the through the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority. They have a contracted environmental consultant firm that works on doing the pre-project environmental work. This firm is also available to local member jurisdictions for use on their local projects. So we have engaged them to conduct what ultimately is going to be a CEQA notice of exemption. But there is certainly some work that goes into that, and then it has to be filed with the county clerk. So that is underway. We're hoping to have that done within the next few weeks, so we can actually get started on the rest of the work. I also wanted to state that through Fire Safe Marin and funding that's provided through Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority, or MWPA, we were able to get Fire Safe Marin to help out in clearing some hazardous and flammable vegetation from the roadway median on Miller Creek Road in between Quietwood Drive and Las Colinas Avenue. The district does not control nor maintain, it's not district property, falls under the county roadway right of way, but this opportunity was there. So we utilized Fire Safe Marin, and just last week they actually came through and cleared out any of the juniper, rosemary, some acacia, some dead foliage that was in there. And next time land design comes in, it's going to be a lot more opened up for them to be able to get through and get all this stuff. The other plants that aren't considered highly flammable obviously have stayed in place, but if you drive by, you might notice some of this. And there's still a little bit of cleanup to do, but we're very thankful for that help, just as a community effort to help keep that as safe and neat as possible. On these other items of note, the return to in-person meetings, there is actually an assembly bill, I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe it is Assembly Bill 631 that has been making its way up the ladder and currently sits on the governor's desk. That very well could extend the return to in-person meetings. I'm waiting on a little bit more info. Right now, it's kind of written up in legal terms. I just got an email from CSDA today reminding that, as soon as this is signed, it would go into effect. If it is signed, it will, they will then release kind of the step-by-step. I'm not 100% sure if this is going to require remote meetings or allow, so I will keep the board informed on that. I would say, given the events of tonight, we'll probably figure out how far this is going to go or not. And I don't think anything is going to happen to it until we have clarity on what is happening with this recall election either way. And then finally, just on the maintenance facility, work does continue as planned. We are moving through well. We have encountered some delays in materials availability and supply chain challenges, but everybody still remains optimistic that the exterior work on the facility can be completed prior to rainy season. So the contractor's been very good about being able to pivot when certain materials aren't available. And we're working with the county on trying to, have our needed inspections along the way expedited as quickly as we can. We've been getting some feedback on various inspections that they're a week and a half out in terms of scheduling things. So it's we're working with them. I've been playing phone tag with the supervisor for there, and I believe hopefully this will get resolved. Again, I don't really have any reasons for it, but it's certainly other things that, you can't move on until you get signed off on. So that's where that's at. But again, the contractors are very good about being able to pivot and move to other areas that can be done in the meantime. With that, any questions?
Well, it seemed pretty straightforward. I noticed upon my return, I took a walk around, all the, let's see, when I left, the back wall for the shed was finished by our crew. And they had laid out the parameters for, I guess, the floor that's going to be poured. And when I walk by, everything's set up for a pour, I guess. They still have to put the rebar in. It looked like all the pipes were in. And that's about it that I
Yeah,
saw.
they're finishing up rebar. And that's actually the inspection that we're trying to schedule right now, the sub-floor and rebar inspection. And then once that's signed off, they're scheduled for a pour next week if we can get the inspection done in time. Otherwise, we'll have to push the pour back a few days.
This is like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
been 3 weeks, so.
I know, and they called with over a week in advance, and they were told, "Oh yeah, we're a week and a half out." So we're
boy.
seeing what we can do here.
Okay, that's about all I have. Thank you. Anybody else?
Well, I had a quick question / confirmation. So the public health order regarding the vaccination status. So we have under 100 employees, so we don't hit Biden's, I guess, but we're government.
Has nothing to do with Biden.
Well, I'm just wondering, because his thing was now saying that anybody with over 100 employees needs to make sure that everybody's vaccinated.
Well,
and that we don't need to offer testing. So I was just confused about that.
Well, there's two things at play. One is what Biden's hasn't been written yet. So
Okay.
that is
It was
still
just a
nothing.
proposal. Okay.
Nothing is official there yet. And two, this actually comes from the Marin County Health Department. And what I didn't mention in there is in accordance with the public health officer for Marin County, all first responders, law enforcement personnel, firefighters, if they are not vaccinated, must undergo weekly testing.
Okay.
So that certainly is a requirement that is faced of us, but it is not, it's only for first responders. But we still have to record and maintain the status of all employees.
Okay.
And self-attest doesn't work. We've literally been, reviewing documentation.
Okay. That was my second question, but.
Yep.
Okay, my turn. Few questions on the median between Miller Creek and or Las Colinas and Quietwood. Is there any way that we can add the eucalyptus trees to that as well and have that maintained by our MWPA crew, or is it?
Yeah,
Is
that
that
would be a
possible?
much larger job. This was something they came through and in a day, they're looking at the low-lying plants, the juniper and everything else. There was a couple down branches that were there. And I said, hey, as you guys are driving out, you mind grabbing those down limbs and just running them through the chipper? And they absolutely did that. But in terms of coming and maintaining, or looking and trimming back those red youths that you're talking about, that goes a little bit beyond the scope of kind of what the chipper day, because this is all in coordination with chipper day, and they had some availability in their time slots that weren't full. So they were able to come through and get that done really quickly. But it's something that certainly was a thought, and we're seeing if maybe, might be something more appropriate towards, the evacuation route work that they are also doing through the MWPA.
Okay, I just knew that it was a topic of our fire commission meeting. And so just to make sure it stays on the radar. And then my next question for the maintenance facility, when Bill does Bill get consulted when there's, for any reason, for any changes, or if there's supply, or they just cancel? And if we consult him, do we pay for it? Or is it still part of the whole development part?
Bill gets consulted on every, Bill has to sign off on any change orders. There hasn't really been any change orders, but Bill also has to sign off, like when they give us billing or invoices, Bill has to sign off that, yep, this work has been completed and is satisfactory, that he listed as complete and satisfactory. And he also joins me. We meet with the contractor once a week, every week, just to progress updates. Where are we? Answer questions and make sure that everybody is still moving forward. And yes, he is on a time and materials billing.
Okay, so my follow-up question is that even part of the original contract and budget that we approved for this maintenance facility?
It's part of Bill's original contract, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Anybody else? Call for comments from the public then.
1 second, please. Stephen.
Hi, I'm always confused with that green button. I guess that green button is your button. Yeah, so, you know, is there a reason why we can't have complete reporting on all aspects of the CSD? I ask that because once again, we have a disclaimer saying that the report is not to be considered complete. It's just basically whatever items that you feel are relevant. And I would say all of the public's business is the public's business. We want to know when problems arise, and we want to know when there's successes, and we want to know when there's good news in the community. And fortunately, we want to know when there's bad news in the community. But I do feel that that is a primary obligation of the district manager. Otherwise, who is he actually serving? You know, actually, I have a couple questions, and it's regarding the fire and, you know, our reports from the fire chief. I just feel like we're not getting any information. The way that the meetings are being recorded are cryptic at best. And it seems like there really is an intent to not be held accountable for what occurs. And I think that we can do better. I'm an optimist, and, you know, as I started the meeting, and I've been trying to start the meetings, we need a vision for our community for the future. We need a vision for doing our future generations better and making this place a more beautiful place. And without a vision and without a disciplined plan to achieve that vision, I'm afraid, you know, we're just going to do what has always been done. And, you know, it's really not the way to succeed, I think, at anything, by not being accountable. So hopefully we will make the you know, the park get enough done before the rains come, but they do start November 1st. So we'll keep our fingers crossed, and hopefully things will work in our favor. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? I guess not. On to fire department matters.
Yeah, Bill.
Report.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring over Battalion Chief Matt Windrum, who's serving as the interim chief. Chief White is currently out on a personal leave, and Chief Windrum is serving as the interim in his place. So I'm gonna promote him over into our meeting here for a second. And I also want to acknowledge that on this report, Chief White actually provided me this report prior to his taking leave. So which also was prior to the fire that took place, and Chief Windrum will be able to not only speak to questions in the report, but then to at the same time be able to provide some information regarding the fire as well. So with that, I introduce Chief Windrum from Centerville Fire Department and thank him for taking some time to join us on a Tuesday night here. Chief.
Thank you, Eric. Good evening. Thank you, President Shea and members of the Board of Directors. Good to meet you virtually here. I'm serving as the acting fire chief in Chief White's absence, and just wanted to kind of go over the update and can provide some information on the Lassen fire that was just missed the press deadline for the update that Chief White provided. As Eric has already kind of covered some of the MWPA issues that are outlined in the report from Chief White. There is some work going on home hardening grants and some efforts that are going on there. And then the CEQA evaluations that are being done for that phase 2 vegetation management, that's ongoing. Our team, vegetation management specialists and folks who are working in the open space are working closely with the district employees on those projects. There have been 869 vegetation management inspections completed year to date. And that may be out of date by now because they're just continuing to work on that. Citywide, they've done thousands of inspections throughout all of San Rafael and Marinwood and are getting very good compliance and really doing a lot of good education with members of the public as well around alerting and other preparedness types of things, using that time that they're there at folks' homes to cover that. Eric also covered the COVID-19 information, so I don't think we need to cover that again, but with regards to the vaccine verification for the first responders, for all public employees, and then the testing for first responders. So that will happen if we have members who have not proven that they're fully vaccinated. With regards to the incident section here, there's reference to the strike team assignment. We have an engine that was originally staffed jointly with Captain Ryan Brackett from Marinwood and 3 San Rafael employees, and they spent 2 weeks at the Caldor fire. That crew returned on September 2nd and was rotated out with another crew who is just finishing up a 2-week rotation, and we anticipate them returning this week, which will be good. They've made good progress on that fire. There was obviously a significant fire with major threat to South Lake Tahoe and a whole lot of areas there, the Highway 50 corridor. Those crews on that first 2 weeks, we had folks who've been, Captain Brackett has been on a number of strike team assignments in his career. And I think that's safe to say that that was one of the busiest and most challenging assignments that they've had. That it was every day that they were working, they were really, those first 2 weeks of that fire were really, really challenging. And so they did a great job. We're glad to have that crew back, and we look forward to getting the other crew back when they return this week. We had a fire in San Rafael in mid-August, a 2.5 acre fire on San Rafael Hill. It was reported at about 10 o'clock at night. It was very visible from the highway, and so created a few challenges for us with a lot of people phoning in and reporting it in a number of different locations. And we ultimately located the fire kind of at the end of Graceland Drive. It was in an area that had some treatments done through MWPA and other vegetation management, including kind of a shaded fuel break at the top of the hill, which helped protect the Robert Dollar Fire Road and really made a difference in slowing down the spread of that fire. And I will cover the Lassen fire after I just go through this information that was in Chief White's report. Just at the beginning of this month, Captain Andy Rogerson retired from the San Rafael Fire Department. And of note to Marinwood is that Captain Rogerson, after serving time in the United States Navy, he was a volunteer and then an employee of the Marinwood CSD as a firefighter before he was hired to come to work in Santa Fe in 1996, I believe, 95, 96, when he came to Santa Fe. And so he finished his career in Santa Fe, but had very fond memories of his time and his start in Marinwood as a volunteer and then as a paid firefighter. So we wish him all the best in his retirement. And then included there are some August statistics with regards to the emergency calls. I don't think there is anything that was particularly outstanding in terms of these calls when I was reviewing them, but one cooking fire in Marinwood and a couple of vegetation fires in Santa Fe. And then September 1st, the Lassen fire. So in the afternoon of Wednesday, September 1st, at about 2:10 in the afternoon, we began to get calls for a fire reported in the area of Mount Lassen, and there on the slope of the Big Rock Ridge. The engine from the wildland engine from Marinwood was the first engine to arrive there. They got there about 7 minutes after the dispatch, and at that point estimated it was the fire was probably 2 to 3 acres in the grass and trees, but it was moving uphill and it was kind of aligned with the prevailing wind that comes out of the west in the afternoons. That area of the ridgeline is a state responsibility area, so it's it would be sort of under CAL FIRE jurisdiction, which in Marin County is handled by the Marin County Fire Department. So our initial chief officer, we initiated what's called the Unified Command, where we work together with Marin County Fire. They dispatched a lot of their resources to come assist at the fire. And then we also had CAL FIRE and out of the county resources come to help. Ultimately, aircraft, we had 4 air tankers flying on the fire and 2 helicopters who all helped to, hold the fire in check while crews were making their way up from down below. And then we had crews also working at the top. The fire made it up to the Queenstone Fire Road. It got over the fire road by a little bit, but that area they were able to kind of pick it up on that backside on the north edge of the Queenstone Fire Road. And ultimately, when all was said and done, the fire was just about 45 acres in size. It was a very kind of long, skinny fire, as it was just sort of blown by the wind, and the topography took it right up the hill. And so that was sort of the path. Early on in that unified command, their decisions were made to issue evacuation orders for areas there along Idleberry, all the way down to Miller Creek and up to Queenstone, just out of concern that whether that fire would come along the edges of any of those homes. Thankfully, it didn't. It stayed away from the homes and up the hill, and we were able to downgrade those from evacuation orders to warnings in the evening, and folks were able to begin the process of returning to their homes. As I mentioned, there were resources. We were calling for additional resources. We got a number of engines and water tenders from Sonoma County, and then the CAL FIRE resources. And kind of to illustrate, we were at the time when the Caldor and Dixie fires were both pulling a lot of resources. Some of the crews that were coming from Willits as the first available crew. So not exactly the response time we're usually accustomed to, but it's a bit of a drive to come from Willits down to Marinwood for a fire. So, we kept crews out there for the next 2 days in partnership with Marin County Fire, mopping up hot spots and making sure that, it stayed within the containment lines, and we were there to get it fully mopped up. That process is all complete now. And then I think, as probably most folks saw, the cause of the fire was determined to be mowing there in the area behind Jeanette Prandy. And it's a reminder to us all that, have to do vegetation management, but especially this time of year, you've got to do it at the right time. And that's, in the morning before 10 a.m. when it's, ideally on a foggy day, certainly not on a red flag day, which it was not a red flag, but it was a relatively mild day. But the fuels are so dry right now; they're at record dryness throughout the northern part of the state. So it's just a reminder to everybody, as you're talking to folks about doing their defensible space work, just remind them that stop doing the mowing early and just get back to it the next day. So that's basically my report. I'd be glad to answer questions if anybody has any about the report or the fires. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I just want to reiterate how thankful we are for the quick response and saving all of our homes and our community. And I'm sure everyone can understand being part of the fire commission and listening to being part of this board really truly is an educational at the same time, where I know that our commissioners have already thought about what happens if that hill goes on fire, so I just thank you for the quick response and everything else. So
thank you.
I would reiterate that thanks as a family that had to evacuate. We appreciate the fact that we came back to a home that was still standing. So it was, I thought everybody involved, in terms of the sheriff's department combined with, everybody else, it was really impressive. I've lived here for a lot of years and seen a lot of fires on that hill, and it was the first evacuation, but I thought it was handled really well. And the support that we got from, everybody who was zipping up and down the hill, including our neighbors coming to check on us, was great. So please pass that along that we're very grateful.
Thank you. I will. And I did neglect to mention the partnership with the sheriff in our unified command. The sheriffs had representatives there, and they handled the notifications and the alerts and the evacuations, and they were assisted by CHP and Santa Fe Police to execute those. And it was a very, there's always things we learn after every one of these, but all in all, it was handled very well by the law enforcement, certainly. So thank you.
Yeah, I'll reiterate too. I mean, I was actually walking home with 10 between fourth grade and kindergartners, and we were walking through the open space and there was no fire. And then the kids turned around to tell me something and screamed fire. So I was standing there calling it in while waving at the Marin Parks and Rec people that were right there. And by the time I had called in, told the kids to keep walking and gotten to those cones that, keep us from driving into the open space, the sheriff was already out there knocking on doors, telling people, well, I'm like, it's okay. Because the kids are screaming at the top of their lungs. They're like, time to evacuate. So I'm like, it's okay. But you guys did a great job at really quickly handling the situation and coming down the street with the sheriff vehicle and stuff, letting us all know. It was very much appreciated. And thank you for my first fire. I've got a lot of firsts apparently in this last 2 years. My first pandemic, my first fire and evacuation, but thank you. And we look forward to continuing to harden our spaces with you guys.
Thank you.
I think the only question I have is, we got those NOAA radios or whatever.
Mhm.
And I know mine broke, so I know why mine didn't work. So I don't know. I know we were working, and I think it was Chief White that was working with you, Eric, but I could be totally wrong, because that's just when I started up on the commission here. But should those have gone off if mine worked?
Mine's unplugged.
Those radios were actually through a pilot program funded by Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority and Fire Safe Marin. I've heard from a few people who have them that nothing went off. So I'll bring that up to powers that be. It's something we've been kind of discussing a little bit more to commission level, but we'll certainly see if this was the type of incident when they should have gone off. And if it wasn't that type of incident, then what exactly type of incident is it that does make them sound the alert. So yes, no, Chris, you're not the first
Okay.
person who said that.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, mine went off when there was high winds, but didn't go off for this, so.
I
And
have,
I don't unfortunately know the answer to that off the top of my head. That may be a separate alerting that has to be engaged, but just today actually had a conversation with the superintendent from the school district and just reiterating, how challenging cell service is out in that area. And so it's certainly something to consider, that a lot of folks may not really have great communications out there, and that weather radio might be the right thing for that type of thing.
yes.
I got my notifications from Nixtal the following day.
But
So
were
did you pack
even
up and
here?
leave?
Well, my neighbor called us when we were out of town saying that we were being evacuated. So
Make you stress even more.
Bill, before you go on any public comment too, I also want to point out Deputy Chief Bob Sinnott actually came here while the incident was happening and stayed here right in front of the firehouse in the community center and was really good at a few members of the public coming up and asking questions and looking for information. And he was just an incredible resource to have available to us to be able to do that and be right here. I mean, he couldn't stay for long and he eventually moved more over towards the incident itself, but the fact that he thought enough to come over here and stay here, even though we had other engines constantly swapping in for coverage in case there was other calls or medical calls, having Chief Sinnott here was just so Chief Windrum, I've told this to Chief Sinnott already, but please reiterate that we were very appreciative of his time and recognizing that, okay, public's going to have questions and the answers just sound a lot better from somebody wearing a uniform and a badge. So it was, and not to mention, I mean, he's about the most perfect person to play that role at that point in time because he's very calm, he's very reassuring, he's very congenial and warm and welcoming. So again, please express my gratitude and on behalf of everybody who talked to him. I know a lot of people are very appreciative of having him there.
awesome.
Will do.
I was one of them.
Yeah.
But I want to just tell you, Eric, I trusted you too. I trusted your response as well.
So yeah, and I want to reiterate, I mean, I was incredibly impressed by the quick response and how this fire was handled. I mean, it was also my first fire in this area. And it brought to mind just a couple of questions. One of them I'll bring up now, one of them I might bring up later. I noticed that when the evacuation orders came out, everything that I read indicated that there wasn't anywhere for anyone to go who was being evacuated. And I guess I'm wondering, and I don't know if this is the right place to ask the question. I mean, do we have some sort of a plan in place, or are we maybe drawing something up that maybe can have some sort of plan if we find ourselves in this situation again where people are needing to evacuate, having some place to go?
Yeah, so after all of these types of incidents, we almost always do some sort of an after action review. And even the next day, folks that were involved with the evacuations and the alerting aspect were having that discussion. And that was an area that was identified as an area to improve, in that, hey, we need to direct folks to some, they have a whole lot of terminology and acronyms, but I think it's a TEP, a temporary evacuation point. Just essentially kind of, go to the east side of the highway and hang out at the cinema or something, something along those lines to provide that information. So I think that was missing in the early alerting, but has been recognized and as an area that folks are taking as a lesson learned for future needs like that. Interestingly, we were hampered at the incident command post as well with just the cell difficulties. It's such a different ballgame when it's hard to make a phone call and just have a 2-minute conversation. So, but that was an area that was definitely identified. So thanks for bringing it up.
And to
Chief,
follow up, sorry.
Go ahead, sorry.
I was just gonna say, to follow up on what Lisa said, we helped our neighbor who is in her 80s and had family who evacuated from Tahoe and showed up to then get evacuated from here. They went to the Civic Center, and she's been here since this area has been built. And she's like, oh, you just go to the Civic Center. You always go to the Civic Center. So apparently in the past, when things have gone down in the neighborhood, they used to go to the Civic Center. So if we're going to go with what the older people do.
Not all of them.
Not all of
A
them.
lot of us just went to bed.
Well, some people
and
went to
hoped that-
Northgate to go eat ice cream and have coffee, and other people went into the city. So people went everywhere, but the older people who are not going to be as mobile, and those are the people that I think that we're most concerned about, are people with kids, right? Is they went to the Civic Center. So if that helps you with what you're planning, if this is like people's jerk reaction is to go to the Civic Center, maybe that's a good idea to do it at the Civic Center. I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely that.
My non-expert.
Yeah, that's one of the areas that's often used, and we've utilized it over the last few years a couple of times as an evacuation center, primarily taking people in from outside the county. But it definitely has a lot of those things that you'd be looking for when it comes to the infrastructure to support something like that.
Chief, if I could also follow up on this, in the middle of this, I was, back and forth several times with Quinn Gardner, who's the Santa Fe Emergency Services Manager, as well as other people from the Marin OES office. And they were able to coordinate. The YMCA did open up their facility as a temporary staging and evacuation center. By the time they got that, this was pretty short-lived. The actual evacuation order was pretty quick. And we were certainly looking at that. They did put it out. I believe it went out on one of the, either the Alert Marin or Nixle or both. But literally within 20 minutes after that information going out, the order wound up being lifted and downgraded to evacuation warning. So there was certainly people working in that moment, coordinating. A lot of times our facility becomes this, but we were in the evacuation zone and they were able to coordinate with the YMCA. But again, by the time they were able to coordinate that with the YMCA.
Eric, we lost your audio there.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, good. Anyway, they were moving through with the YMCA, and by the time they were able to get coordinated with the YMCA, which literally was not long after this incident started, it was also very quickly then after the evacuation order was downgraded to an evacuation warning. So there was certainly a lot of work happening while the incident was taking place to coordinate a level of evacuation place for people to go and stage while they waited.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately,
Thank you.
it wasn't needed. I think a lot of people wound up going to the parking lot at Northgate Mall and waiting there.
I heard a lot of people had a lot of ice cream and drank a lot of coffee.
Coffee. Lisa, I don't want to cut you off. Did you have any other questions?
No, thank you. That was it for me.
Okay, I have just one question is, as a board member, what is our role? I understand that the first is safety and to get out, but is there any other requirement that we need to do?
I think probably the biggest thing is, based on, and this is not official, this is probably not in the California Code of Board Regulations or wherever you find those sorts of things. But would be just to having gone through this, you now can help those neighbors and those folks in the community who may be identified that they never got the Alert Marin warning because although we've tried to advertise so many different ways what to do and how to sign up for that, they've never gotten signed up, or that they're not ready to, they haven't gotten those alerts, et cetera. After the Santa Fe Hill fire, we dealt with that. Folks saying, I realized I just don't know how to get alerts. I never got anything. I must not be signed up. So there's sign up for Nixle via 888-777 and text your zip code. There's alertmarin.org to actually get signed up. And then, talking with neighbors about the older folks who might need help. Do you know who amongst your neighbors needs help? And that's just for any citizen living in our communities, but particularly for you folks as leaders in the community and involved in the emergency services. That's what I would kind of say is probably the highest and best use of your time and energy after something like this, is making sure that, nobody's going to slip through the cracks if we have to do this again.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. And we open it up to the public.
Yeah, 1 second, please. Stephen.
Yeah, so my computer crashed and I was offline for most of your presentation, Chief. So I have a few comments. First of all, I was very impressed with all the manpower and equipment that was on that fire. It was just really quite a sight to see. So I want to congratulate you there. Also, I have never signed up for any of the notification services. I know there's a bunch, and now they even want us to have radios, which apparently don't work. But I did get a notification on my cell phone. I don't know how that came about, but I did get it. The notification, unfortunately, I didn't understand it when I got it. I thought it was like an Amber Alert. And what was presented, what the person said was, there's a fire at Mount Lassen. Well, I have some in-laws who live up near Mount Lassen, so I didn't immediately make the connection that it was Mount Lassen Drive in Lucas Valley. So I would urge the feedback to be more specific and to get people to move off the dime and evacuate. This is the second major incident of the summer, and I was surprised that we didn't get a report. You did explain part of the reasons why, but I still think we need a written report on this fire particularly. There's 6,000 people in this valley. Let's learn from what occurred, what could have been done better, how the community can respond better. We just need lessons learned, and it's not going to be captured, with a conversation with 5 board members and 1 member of the public. So I really request that. The second incident was a fatality that occurred a half mile from Marinwood Firehouse that we've never had a report on. I don't even know who the responding agency was. So the information from the fire department, in my opinion, is unacceptable. And I hope, as acting interim chief, that you can make sure that our community gets the notification. We want to support you. And how can we do that if we don't know exactly what you guys are doing? So please give that consideration and get that out to our public. That's all I have to say for right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Anybody else, Eric? Okay. I guess that concludes Chief Windrum. I really appreciate your coming in tonight.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
We may see you next month too, I guess. I don't know.
I anticipate the Chief White will be back, but
okay.
We'll see.
Oh, we're such a fun group to hang out with, though.
That's true. That's true. Thank you.
All right.
Chief.
Thank you.
Matt, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
The date of the next Fire Commission meeting is October 5th.
Right.
On to the draft minutes of the Park and Recreation Commission meeting review. Any questions? Comments?
Sorry, I'm trying to get to the right page here. Where did it go? It says, talking about the item 5, the park play structure replacement project. They discussed the project, the grant funding and everything. It's I just feel like I don't know, and maybe this is just me, but I don't know that I'm really feeling as much in the loop as I should be on a project that's like kind of a centerpiece of the neighborhood. And I don't know, like, I don't know if it was just discussed for a couple minutes or if there were some like larger points made. I don't know.
Lisa, do you want it or me?
Go ahead.
Okay. This wasn't discussed too much in this meeting. It was just more kind of an update. I'm trying to remember if this was the board that approved this project. If you look in the PNR packet, it also discusses the timing. This whole project completion date is still a year and a half out.
Oh, totally.
It's a grant funded program. The application for it is due in December, and that's just basically stating our intent to replace the playground component. We're right now finalizing. There will be some public outreach that'll go out about it, kind of in the form of surveys, as well as a big part of this update was talking about what the bidding process is going to look like for this, because it will be a public works job, and how something like this will be a design and build, because a lot of the playground equipment and things vary by manufacturer and by vendor. And this allows vendors a chance to kind of make proposals in terms of overall design, and we can work with them instead of we wouldn't be limited to coming back to them. So when we get to that point, obviously, before any contracts or agreements are approved, that would certainly come back to the board. So it's something that the Park and Rec Commission is working on right now. They've kind of put together and finalized a survey. Luke and I, with a lot of Carolyn's help, we're going to put that out to the community, probably like via Survey Monkey. And we talked about best way to get that information out there. It'll be mostly qualitative in nature so that we can get some feedback to help kind of guide the scope and look of this. The primary purpose of this is the equipment that we have, especially in our main playground, has reached not only the end of its useful life, but certainly the end of its replacement life.
Sure.
And we're having a very difficult time, and Luke can probably speak much greater to this than I can, just in being able to locate qualified replacement parts for it. When parts break, they've gotten very expensive, and you can't just go in and kind of rebuild it yourself. I mean, Luke could speak more to that as a certified playground inspector, but it's a little, you can't just go in and, throw a couple 2x4s and something and call it fixed.
Yeah, no, I understand all that. Because Luke, you've discussed that before, and I totally appreciate the fact that we need to, that the Parks and Rec Commission is looking at something that's we're replacing it. I just didn't, based on these notes, I didn't know how deep they had gotten into it. I was recently doing a little bit of research and found out that Cal actually has one of the top landscape design schools in the country, and I kind of saw this as maybe a creative way of trying to get some graduate students to maybe give us some free work.
Well, to be clear, within the scope, this is a capital project.
Mhm.
So you're not, it's not landscape or things like that. This is actually, the exact term is escaping me, but this is capital. This is replacement. This isn't repair. So it's what qualifies under the funding for this. So right now we're looking at this as just the replacement of the actual playground equipment itself. So we're kind of looking at how within the space given, right now the scope doesn't involve re-landscaping the playground area greatly at any rate. It's just how can we maximize the space and what is some of the best kind of interactive equipment that can be placed there.
Right. No, that's what that falls under the scope of what I was talking about is I know we're not going to like re-landscape the entire park area there and stuff like that. But just in doing this, it's all part of college research. You'll be there soon, Eric.
Yeah.
And I just happen to like just for the fact that we've got a school right next to us that maybe could be, I mean, it's obviously a total long shot, but I didn't know how creative the Park and Rec Commission was looking to get on it.
Right. Yeah, no, it's, we're just living within the funds and the scope of what the grant allows. Which is again, kind of capital replacement, capital, capital needs, facilities, equipment, things along those lines, but it's not, they're very clear in that, this isn't like to repair or do anything like that. This is, new structures, new,
Right.
new items or replace, full replacement of items, which is where the playground falls under.
Right. Okay.
And the play structure, I guess, is the
Right.
proper term. So
Right.
we're looking at replacing those structures that currently exist in the park.
Cool.
I have a question regarding the Blackstone Canyon and Horn Trail. I'm just out of curiosity, what came out of that discussion and how often do we maintain that trail, because it is a basic single track trail.
I'll let Luke go with that.
Yeah, so our discussion at the commission meeting, I gave a short like PowerPoint just on the basics of a little bit of the history of our maintenance routine on that trail, what our staff attends to, what things are sort of beyond our scope, and sort of the issues that we deal with, and from fallen trees that we go out and have to clear out of the way, to just some of the challenges of all the extra traffic on the trail with bikes and new access from the new Pawnee Ridge Trail. So we had a lot of discussion about that, and Commissioner John Campo offered a lot of insight on the trail maintenance from his point of view at the county, and just discussion of kinds of things need to go into keeping a trail maintained in the long term. And so it was just sort of a general discussion about that. And as far as like, there wasn't like a big major conclusion or takeaway, just sort of getting everyone more informed on what it is that we do out there, and where our limitations are. And it comes down to, we wish we had more staff we could dedicate to the trail, and more resources that we could put into that. But in the meantime, the trail is in good shape, and it's very widely used, and we do the best we can out there. So I don't know, Eric, do you think that's a fair characterization?
Okay,
You're muted.
Yeah, no, I do. It was, just also just kind of talking a little bit about, kind of some of the increased usage that it's seen lately and things along those lines. And there are some questions that came up around it being a hiking only trail versus a multi-purpose that allows for biking and things like that too. So it was.
well, once you get to a certain point in that trail along the creek, biking is almost damn near impossible.
You mean coming down or going up?
Well, going up for sure. There's a couple of portages where you definitely have to get off your bike and pick it over a couple of trees anyway.
Well, that's good, because it is a hiking only trail. So that's
Yeah.
so it's all by design.
But I know during the rainy season, as it would be determined, that trail, you're going to get wet no matter what. People are going to fall if you utilize that trail. And once you get up on top, because I've been up on halfway in between, there was a slide at one point where the trail goes up to meets at Queenstone. So about halfway up, there was a slide that wiped out part of that trail. So, I mean, it's been like that for years. So
What's really not like the 20-minute version, but like the 30-second version, what is our control over something like an open space trail like that, and how far up do we go before it becomes somebody else's issue?
well,
Oh, sorry, I don't know who you're asking.
Anybody who can answer it.
no, because I know Tom and the Boy Scouts finished that trail
Right.
at one point. Because at one point they had markers out and it
Yeah, yeah.
just, they totally disappeared during a storm. I
But
remember.
I guess
that
my
there.
question is, and this speaks to, I think, something else that's on our agenda about the residential facility that's being built out by the highway and everything like that, is what, as we go into the open space, what is Marinwood Park and Rec responsible for versus then it passes off to the county? And I heard the chief tonight say that even at one point it passes off to the state in terms of fire protection.
There is certain property that Marinwood owns as a district that was either deeded to us through various
Sure.
portions of development or purchased via bonds. Most of this occurred in the late 60s and early 70s, with some of it trickling in a little bit later. Any property that is ours is our responsibility. That
Okay.
said, we do have some access and encroachment agreements, like say the new Ponte Trail that was built and is maintained by the County Open Space District, but was actually placed, a large portion of it runs through property owned by Marinwood. It also runs through some other property as well as their property. The chief was referring to where that other one started. I mean, I can show you maps. It's very hard for me to kind of explain it here.
That's fine. I'm just trying to get a general idea, Eric.
Yeah, basically where Idleberry meets the county facilities.
Yep.
All open space immediately north of that kind of resident line right there.
Mhm.
That carries through, down to Blackstone Canyon.
Mhm.
That whole portion is ours, but then when you get past kind of Blackstone Lane and Blackstone Canyon, there's large
Right.
chunks of open space there that are owned by the local Regency Homeowners Association. There's 30 or 40 acres that are owned by the Catholic Charities and the Carmelite Monastery. Then you go into, so it gets pretty confusing as you get
Okay.
out there. We have about 800 acres.
Okay.
And unfortunately, there's not open space city limit signs out there.
And so
Yeah, they don't call us, this doesn't belong to us area.
exactly. So in essence, for that property that we own, we could, through recreational purposes, do whatever we want with it.
To a degree, sure. In
Okay.
theory, we could. That said, and we're going to get into this in a
With
later
what
part of the-
money,
No, I know.
Chris?
Well,
What do you want to do?
Yeah, we have very limited resources on this.
Yeah, no, I
Limited-
get that.
Limited staff, limited finance, all of it, without a doubt. So that
Yeah.
certainly limits what we can do. The open space, when it was purchased or deeded over, was done with the intention of preserving it as open space,
Right.
and basically preventing further development. It
Perfect.
wasn't done at that time for purposes necessarily of recreation, is my understanding. And there certainly wasn't the hindsight of, open space takes maintenance as well. And you don't
Sure.
just get to let it sit there and do nothing with it, except stop people from ever being able to build on it. So it's an agency like ours. I mean, it's our open space now, and I promise you, nobody else is going to take it. So
Right.
as much as I've tried, because there's other agencies much better resourced and equipped to be able to properly manage the open space in ways that we just don't have the resources.
Gotcha. Perfect. Thank you. Learning things every day.
And
Yeah.
Chris, don't suggest a board work day.
Oh, I
Just
got all
saying.
kinds of things. You got that new big truck.
True. A haul, not work.
Anything else? Anything from the public?
Yeah, 1 second, please.
Yes, it's too bad that you don't have a better report, Chris, for what happened at the meeting. There was more information than what was shared with you this evening, and certainly more than that was on the report. One of the things that I said was, in my judgment, looking at not only our equipment, but also what was proposed as replacements, which are basically the same as what we have right now, that we should really just try to maintain what we have. It looks to be in good condition to me. And we can engineer some solutions for the platforms that keep breaking. This is a little bit longer discussion, but really where we should put our resources in is in a splash pad at the pool. I believe this would qualify as playground equipment. It would also bring people into the pool and add to our revenue stream. I think it'd be great. They're very popular. We need to do something with the baby pool anyhow. And I think $200,000 would maybe just cover a small splash pad. And that's something that's worth exploring. Now, you didn't hear that. And I've expressed that several times to Luke and Eric. And it's frustrating to me that we can't have an honest discussion on some basic things. Now, with regards to open space, I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but you know, there are some approaches to open space that will work, that could possibly be self-funding. And we have some examples here in the Bay Area. There's a park up in Napa, about 800 acres, as I recall. And they have kind of a membership thing going on, but we can look at our open space in a different way and provide access to our open space and keep it in good shape. I'm all for improving our open space access and recreational opportunities. And I think it may require additional staff or maybe reassigning responsibilities, but we clearly don't have the expertise right now in-house or the willingness to deal with open space. And maybe that's really the problem, not the funding issue. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Stephen. If anybody has anything else, we can move on to number 2. Potential trail along Miller Creek from Las Colinas to Marinwood Drive.
Yeah, I tried to, I have a brief staff memo in here, and I'm going to just try to speak to this a little bit more. As I put in the memo, back in 2006, during, some of the initial planning approvals for the senior center that is going to be located kind of just west of Highway 101 along an extension of Marinwood Road that is to be built kind of past the market and the bus area. One of the conditions of approval from a planning standpoint was the creation and development of a trail that would extend from Las Colinas Avenue just south of Miller Creek and run along the creek down through the open space area there and eventually end on what is going to be this new kind of Marinwood Drive extension leading to the to be built senior facility. This has always, kind of been in our radar, but it's also always been contingent upon that senior facility actually being built. Now that they are continuing to move further with the senior facility, I've actually had a couple of different meetings with the developer and some of his representatives, and then Luke and I, and then a representative from the senior facility, as well as John Campos and our P&R commission, actually walked the kind of proposed route. I think all of us realized very quickly that this was a very challenging area. It is very dense. It's very steep along the hillside in a lot of places. The creek bank is eroding quite a bit right there. And we all kind of questioned the practicality and feasibility of being able to put a proper trail. Nobody questioned that it would be a wonderful place to have a trail, because it would be really nice to be able to, in essence, create an extension of our own little panhandle path that already runs on the other side of the creek. But it became very challenging, just as we were walking through there and looking, and it was nice to have John's expertise as somebody who has, kind of been behind some major trail builds to kind of put some things into perspective. one of the things, and it parlays perfectly off the conversation that we just had, is if any sort of a trail is to go into this area, it needs to be a professionally designed, well-built trail that is not going to just lead to massive future maintenance headaches. And Luke, please, feel free to chime in. I'm not a trained eye. I had a trained eye out there. I don't know how incredibly possible that is. I do know it would be incredibly time consuming. It would involve many environmental regulatory agencies, from Fish and Wildlife to Regional Water Quality Control Board to the Army Corps of Engineers, because you'd really be needing to bring in and shore up parts of the creek bank. Anytime you start touching creek bank, every one of those agencies are going to get involved. You're also going to have some outreach, with some of the local advocacy groups. You need to do some biological studies that are going to need to go through there first to identify any potential impacts that may need to be mitigated, if they could be mitigated. As much as I think we were all looking forward to, hey, this would be a great place to put a trail, I think we left our walkthrough kind of scratching our heads and wondering exactly how practical it would be to put a trail there in that area. I don't know, Luke, do you have any other kind of recap from that?
No, I think you characterized that well. I mean, it was a fun, if slightly treacherous hike. And it definitely was it would be a wonderful spot to have a trail. But yeah, the definitely seems like a very large project and a very challenging project to complete. And I think even under the best circumstances, it would add a large maintenance factor to our parks maintenance schedule. And under less than ideal circumstances, I think it would be I would be very wary of taking on a responsibility that big, with our current situation. So I share your conclusions for sure.
Yeah, with that said, we kind of met, and one of the things that we had talked about was potentially, and John Campbell was able to give us a couple references, one of whom I've actually heard back from and is unfortunately not available to do any work like this to the spring, just because he tore some hamstring ligaments, so I can't do any of this kind of work, but he is going to provide me some references. One of the things we talked about is it even possible to get kind of an initial feasibility study from, kind of an independent third party, trail designer before even getting into trail design, just so somebody can look at this area and say, what are the obvious challenges, the obvious impacts, and what would even be the potential cost, the timing, is it feasible, is it practical? I don't know that such a study really fully exists like that. The one person I contacted seemed to think that he could do something like that, but unfortunately it's just simply not available. I mean, no building at this time of year, no construction or anything is going to be able to happen until spring anyway, because that window closes basically on September 1st in terms of that. Not to mention the process of going through, basically another JARPA application, presenting to these local groups, having a firm trail design. In recognition of these, I did hear from the developer who basically has made a good faith offer and said, look, I recognize these challenges, but also recognizes that this is a condition, and has made an offer for a one-time payment to the district of $35,000 to help maintain other open space areas in lieu of building this trail. So that is certainly on the table at this point in time. What I'm kind of looking for from the board is, any questions you may have on this, and then, to kind of provide some staff direction on this, to either, solicit a preliminary feasibility study, if we could. Something like that, I think, probably falls somewhat out of the scope of the responsibilities, just in terms of this initial feasibility study. I think any sort of trail design would most likely fall under the developer, or just to simply accept a one-time payment offer from the developer in lieu of this trail. Again, I reiterate that I think Luke picked a proper word. I mean, it was treacherous. We were, crawling under and over and around things while we were through there. It's incredibly overgrown area. I think, 16 years ago, 15 years ago, when they had this, they kind of just envisioned a simple trail that kind of, you know, a volunteer crew could come through and mark out and do. I'll tell you right now, that's not a possibility. Not in this area. This would need to be a professionally designed, professionally built trail that's going to have to jump through a lot of hoops to do it. I don't want to downplay that it would be a nice area to have a trail. I just don't know that it's feasible, and I certainly could not recommend putting the district in a situation that says, let's build this trail that we're going to recognize is going to have drainage problems, it's going to have erosion problems. You're talking about, like I said, a lot of work that would go, a lot of money, a lot of time, and then a lot of forward maintenance afterward that would go into it. So I don't necessarily have a recommendation at this point, which is kind of why I put this as a discuss and direct. But I saw I saw a lot of challenges for an agency such as ours to be taking on.
My question would be that based on the information that you and Luke have provided us, that sounds like, one, that building the trail is a condition of the construction of the project.
Should we accept it? Yes.
Well, if we accept it, but this is in the contract of the developer. In order to build his project, he has to put in this trail.
It's part of the planning approval. That said, it would run through our property, and we certainly have the right to say, look, we've discussed this, we've looked at this, and we've decided to forego doing this trail, at which point that would remove it from his planning approval requirement.
But
Okay, if we
Sorry, Bill, go ahead.
accepted it though, no, I'm sorry, Chris. If we accepted that though, he would be under contract to build it. And it sounds like it would be an extremely expensive project to build just the trail. So when I was looking at that 35,000 being like that's kind of a cough, he's getting off the hook as far as I'm concerned. So I was leery of this whole thing.
Yeah, well, I understand where you're coming from on that, Bill. I should also point out that, and it's funny because the way we've been talking about open space here, they also deeded the district a large piece of open space that exists between that entire hillside. There was privately held by the Daphne Trust. When they split off and became lot 1, which is now where they're building the residential facility development, and then lot 2, which is proposed, they also deeded the district remaining open space that fell in between. And this is when the district was still in the mindset of let's acquire open space and preserve it as open space. So the district certainly got a large piece of property out of this. And I just think that the vision and the intention of what that trail would or could be at that time is entirely different than what that trail needs to be. And the way that we kind of looked at what trails were was, going out, there was some hand crews making a trail 3 to 4 feet wide, tamping down some earth and calling it a day, maybe throwing a retaining, not a retaining wall, but a split rail fence or something as it gets closer to the creek bank at some points. That area, I can tell you right now, I'm very happy that we didn't do that 15 years ago, because that trail would become a constant maintenance challenge for us, especially if it was done in such a way.
Well, yeah, but so the land that they deeded, that's part of the hill, correct?
Yeah, that whole hillside there, that kind
All
of
the way up
between,
to the top?
yep, and all the
Okay,
way back
so,
down to the
I
other
mean,
side.
It's not even buildable land, so that was just like extra. They just got rid of it and gave it to us.
Well, I think we asked for it, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, I don't
15
know.
years ago, we asked, yeah.
All I'm thinking is that 35 grand seems to be a little light
Okay.
to
think I
walk
can-
away from. their
Yeah.
ability to build this thing.
I think I can shed a little light on this because unless I'm mistaken, I was on P&R when we accepted this piece of property.
Great.
And it was definitely the Daphne family knew that they were never going to be able to build on that entire piece of property. And so, as you were saying, the trade-off is they get to build that small piece on, I think, what you referred to as lot 1. But I know that those of us who were involved in that conversation envisioned something along the lines of what we have going from Miller Creek out to Las Colinas, that it was going to be a wider path than just a traditional, not much wider, I would say, than most of what Blackstone is. We walked it as well back then. And I'm in agreement with Bill on this one. Like, I'm not saying I haven't walked it recently. I'm not saying that we should put the path in there, but man, if we're gonna, like, this guy's gonna throw us, or this company is gonna throw us 35,000, that's nothing, right? Because their whole buildable plan there is contingent upon making this path happen. So I think that we should be asking them to make this path happen in a way that doesn't end up making the maintenance fall on us. In the sense that this thing has to be so well constructed. I mean, there's too many other communities that have beautiful paths running along their waterways that we should be able to maintain with a minimal amount of maintenance. I mean, does it say anywhere in the conditions that it can't be paved?
They would never let you pave it there. You'd never get away with that from an environmental standpoint. Soluble surface versus non-soluble, it would need to be a dirt path. That would be my experience would tell me that just because it's not along a roadway, I mean, you're kind of going through that area, boy, and I think you'd be quickly looking at a $1 million plus project at that point, no doubt.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, which is why 35,000 doesn't seem like a whole lot. Because what I'm saying is if we're going to agree to not build this because it's too much of a hassle for this company, then I think we should be getting a lot more money than 35,000 so that we can, I don't want to use the term upgrade because that's not what the open space potentially is, but we could certainly be upgrading things within Marinwood that speak to the open space and recreation style things more than 35,000 bucks. I mean, far more.
I'm thinking possibly maybe the splash pool.
I think I think this company should be all in on something, and maybe that's just me being naive, but they should be all in on something far more than that. I kind of see that 35,000 as a little bit of a slap in the face, like we're a bunch of people who don't know what it's worth.
Concur.
I understand the concerns. I just am really bummed that there won't be a pathway. I feel like it's something that would work with our community. And I just am wondering if there's a way, like Chris said, to work with them so that they do build something that we can maintain. But I'm not an expert. It's wishful thinking and thinking about how our community uses it, and probably people are going to walk through it anyways, no, and creating their own path. And is that going to be worse?
Well, nobody walks through it now. Trust me, it's not
But
passable.
but once there's homes there, right? And
No,
people
there's
that
no
are,
homes there.
Yeah,
but
this
like,
isn't
right-
where the homes are at. This is or at least not where the homes are being built. This is kind of almost right across the street from the mini park.
okay.
Like adjacent to the Cadoni's property right there.
You're
Right.
right
Which is a wide path.
until you get about 20
until
feet
you
in.
get to the hill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I agree with Savan in the sense that when they build that other property and those homes are being placed up on the hill, there's naturally going to be some egress. I mean, even if it's just kids building bike jumps, there's going to be something there. I'm just of the opinion that if we let these guys off on this, we're not the ones responsible to build this trail. We're going to maintain it. So they have to build it to the level that we then decide that we're able to maintain it. I mean, I sort of see this as being like a once in a lifetime opportunity. Somebody else gets to build my awesome new trail. Yeah, I'll make them pay for that.
Mhm.
Anybody else?
Anybody else want to chime in?
Nope.
Hmm?
I want more money. How about that?
Eric, let me ask you this, probably in the more reasonable piece here. How do we have any sense if we go with your option number one to solicit a preliminary feasibility study, that you're saying is on us? Do we have any idea how much that might cost us?
Not at this point, I don't know. The one
Okay.
person who I've made contact
Right,
with,
right.
basically said he wasn't out and he could provide some other references and referrals of people that he has worked with and trusts as professionals.
Sure.
So I said, great, please send them over, and I haven't heard back from him.
Right. And if this trail, again, I'm jumping like way far ahead. If we press these people and this trail is built, wouldn't they be responsible for all of the environmental impact studies and everything like that? Because they're the ones building it.
It would be part of the trail construction.
Yeah. I guess we're supposed to give you some direction. I would ask that we would look at a preliminary feasibility study.
See if we can't pull something like that up. I don't disagree with you, Chris. I personally would like to have something like that. I would be curious to see what it would say.
That's my whole thing. I think
and having somebody who knows what they're looking at much more than us, even though we did have somebody out there who's got some pretty good experience. He's not a trail designer by any stretch. He works with trail designers.
Right.
Well,
and John helped do a great job on the Ponte, and that's what I'm saying. We like, who's to say that we couldn't do? I mean, I realize that was multi-million-dollar, but it's not like this guy is saying, "Hey, look, if you decide now, I'll give you $1 million if you don't want to build this trail." This guy is basically saying, I'll buy your toilet paper for the next year. I mean, this is nothing.
Oh, I have one question. If they're building, wouldn't there, and I know there's a difference between a fire trail and a fire road, but would they not have to build some kind of fire trail or something so
No,
there's access?
they'll have access.
Access through Marinwood Drive.
Yeah, they're extending Marinwood Drive. It's going to become a long paved road leading to their facility, kind of at the bottom of the other hillside, parallel to 101.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, it's going to go up on the bottom of the hill, just south of the way station.
They're gonna wipe out the graveyard.
Yep. I see a series of bridges crisscrossing the pristine creek as we watch the salmon spawn once again.
Oh, there'll be a bridge. Want to take public comment, Bill?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, 1 second. I'm going to bring Irv Schwartz over. Irv, can you hear us? Irv, you might need to unmute.
Board members, I'm Irv Schwartz, longtime resident of the district, past board member and Parks and Rec Commissioner and all sorts of things like that. I've been working on the development of this, what was originally 106 acres, since 1981. They finally got approvals from the county around 2005. And in order to implement the first segment of that approval, they entered into an agreement with your board to build a trail along Miller Creek from Las Colinas to Marinwood Avenue. Seemed like a good idea at the time. They posted a performance bond based on the estimated cost of the work of $29,000.
Sorry.
That was the amount of money that was envisioned at the time based on the kind of trail that was envisioned at the time. with these entitlements and this agreement, the owners then sold the property to a developer who is looking to build a senior care facility on the property. And so he inherited the condition of building a trail. And his assumption was in the range of $30,000. When we took the walk that Eric mentions, John Campo started looking at things, and he was talking the building part, a couple of $100,000, not to mention the permitting, the environmental review, and all of that. When I told the developer that, I said, well, the developer does not feel he's obligated to spend that kind of money. He's obligated to spend money in the range of $29,000, plus I assume 15 years worth of inflation. I don't know what that comes out, but he said, how about if we offer the district to make a one-time payment in lieu of building this trail? And he said, ask the district if $35,000 would be a good way of, or a good substitution for the trail. So that's a little more context than what you had a few minutes ago, I hope.
Thank you.
If you have questions of me, I'm here.
Thanks, Irv.
Thank you, Irv. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank
and
you,
like
Irv.
Yeah, and Irv, again, is, very much connected to this project. So he definitely has a much deeper insight on it than I can provide. So I would take advantage of having Irv on the line here if you had questions of him on any of this.
That kind of brings it back. Wow. 29 grand a bond for a simple trail.
Irv, I'm trying to figure out what I want to ask. Are they in fact responsible to build us the trail? I mean, the house I live in now, probably, my parents bought it in 76 for 89,000. I think it's going to be a little more expensive than that now. Aren't we doing market value here? Maybe there's something I'm missing.
Well, that's why I said, and I'm not a financial person.
Right, I'm not either.
It would be reasonable to take that $29,000 figure and inflate it for 15 years. And maybe that's a proper number.
Okay.
But that's, I think, as much as this developer will spend on a trail. And in listening to John Campo, it sounds like that may be the cost of the study you're talking about.
Right.
Not even the design, just
Yeah.
the feasibility study.
So if we were to say, nope, we want a trail and we want you to build it, what do you think is this guy potentially just going to turn around and say, sorry, I'm not going to build my facility?
No, but I think you may get a $35,000 trail. And if you walk it like I did with
Yeah, I've walked it before.
Eric,
I totally know what you're talking about.
I walked it back in 15, 20 years ago, and it was
Yep.
totally different then.
I think you and I walked it together, to be honest.
Yeah, maybe, but it's right up against the eroding bank of the creek. That's the problem. Because the first thing the developer said to me was, can't we just move it away from the creek? And the problem is the hill is just too steep.
But John Campos solved that on Ponte.
No, but this is parallel to the
Right.
slope,
No, I know.
not
But
perpendicular to it.
if we took it in a little different direction, I mean, if you went Ponte straight up, which was the issue with Ponte prior to this new trail, it's all the switchbacks. So if you did the switchbacks all the way up this hill, potentially we make it into a situation where it is feasible to have a trail that doesn't have to exactly follow the creek.
Well, the condition is that it be located within the existing graded bench along the creek bank.
Okay.
That it be a 4-foot wide graded earth trail.
Is that what it says in the agreement?
Pretty much, yes.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you, Irv. I really appreciate it.
I did a quick calculation. I'm sure that Kathleen can do this too better. But the 29,000, I found a website and from 1981 to today's terms, it's $87,528.92. So,
You said from 1981, you have to figure it from 2006.
oh,
That's
it's from
what you figure.
2006.
2015 years.
Oh, so it's even less.
Sorry.
I mean, neither of them is going to pay for anything that would resemble a trail. So-
That's the thing that was so disappointing to me, because I wanted the trail there also.
Interesting. Anybody? Any more questions?
I have no idea.
I don't. Thanks for spending the time tonight, Irv. Appreciate it.
Welcome.
Thanks a lot, Irv.
You're welcome.
Well,
I would like to get some feedback as to kind of what you would like to do, because the
yeah.
developer is proceeding with this project.
Yeah. Now I'm hesitant,
I
Chris.
think we have to get our other public comment first, though, before we can move forward, right?
You are correct, Chris. Let me move on to bring in another one. If you can hold on to Bill, do you want me to leave Irv in just for context, or go ahead and move him out?
Yeah, I mean, he might as well listen.
Okay, 1 second.
Hi, Irv. And thank you, Chris. And those of you who see the long-term value of recreation and open space. What I'm hearing from our staff is they are not interested and they don't have the resources available to maintain that. And that's something I do think that we need to fix. We need staff that understands environmental issues, understands trail building, can manage projects with practical knowledge. And unfortunately, I think our staff is focused on other areas. If you want a trail built, I built several. I worked for the Audubon Society, the Appalachian Mountain Club. We built trails. I helped Tom Horn build a trail. It really depends. I never drove a Bobcat to build a trail. It really depends on how much of a trail you want there. But I think we should make every attempt to keep that open space as a resource for our community. More people are getting outdoors. This is our outdoor gym. This is our recreation area. This is a reason many of us moved to this valley. And frankly, I just don't want to hear that we're selling out this grand opportunity to improve Marinwood CSD. I would like this new manager, phantom manager, be called a caretaker. And that would be a little bit different than what Gary was. Gary was a maintenance and parks and maintenance guy. But I like the idea of a caretaker, someone who would have a holistic care for our entire community, all 800 acres of it. Now, the revenue is obviously a concern, but we just basically have ignored the care of our open space, and that's a matter of will. We have monies available, but most of our staff is, unfortunately, most of the year is sitting indoors at the Marinwood Community Center. And if we devoted those resources out in the field, maybe we can get some of these things done. Deers make trails all the time. They're for free. Boy Scouts make trails all the time for free. Hiking groups make trails all the time for free. Bike groups make trails all the time for free. We can get this done. Let's have a good attitude. Let's embrace what we have going for our community. And let's not get sidetracked by all the potential problems. Certainly, it didn't bug anybody. The environmental issues didn't bug anybody on the maintenance shed project, nor the repaving of Upper Lucas Valley pathway. So I don't know why we're making a big deal out of this. Let's just get this done. If we get this done, we can put together a really nice path right through the entire Miller Creek watershed. And what a grand thing that would be, not only for our community, but for the entire Marin County hiking community. Thanks.
Well, I don't know where to go from here, Eric, honestly.
Well, if I could, I'd go back to what I actually did say, which was, I think your first step's going to be conducting a level of a feasibility study on this
Right.
area. And if putting a trail in this area is even feasible, is actually what I said. So it's, I would probably recommend moving in that general direction. These people aren't just necessarily in the yellow pages, so we're already actively working towards references towards this. And I certainly questioned the feasibility and practicality of putting a trail in this area. Somebody who just recently went through there. I'm very clear, not a professional in that world. We don't have that resource. These are, outside consultants that would need to come in. And I don't even know that the initial study that we're looking for is, necessarily something that fully exists. I mean, this would be a customized study strictly for this area for this purpose.
Yeah, maybe we could find a herd of deer to blaze a trail.
I think there's some extra elk out there at Point Reyes.
Maybe we could get them over here. Yeah, that sounds reasonable to me.
Yeah, I like that. I think we have to at least look at our options.
We
here.
gotta try.
Yeah.
I don't
If
disagree.
Do we have to do an official motion here, or are we just giving you? a
No,
direction?
no, you're not doing
Direction.
anything. We'll just keep moving forward on looking towards finding some of these consultants who do this work and getting just some initial proposals on what it would be to move forward that way. And depending on the total cost of what these proposals would be, I can bring that information to you when I get it, or if the cost is not substantial, it's certainly within my authority to just move forward with it.
Okay,
Okay, great.
yeah, sounds good.
Okay, Irv, we'll be in touch.
Yeah, may I add one thing? You're going to ask then for a feasibility study, including a cost analysis?
Yes.
Yeah, a cost estimation. I think cost analysis would probably be part more of a larger design, but I certainly want, some idea around what would be the cost of building such a trail. I'm gonna get what I can get from them. That's for sure.
You're muted, or if you're trying to say something, we can't hear you.
I don't know why. Something going on with my computer. Yes, I cost or something that I am certainly going to inquire about. I don't know that our what I'm looking for, as opposed to say a full-blown trail design. I want to find out what's possible and what we can do.
We can and cannot do.
Well, exactly. Just in terms of some of this initial analysis.
All right, that sounds good.
I think Irv raised his hand after you were talking.
No, I'm just trying to figure out your gadget here.
Don't do it, Irv. It's not worth it.
All right.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks, Irv.
Thanks, Irv.
thank you, Irv.
And thank you for your historical knowledge.
On to the Recreation and Park Maintenance Activity Report. That would be Luke.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, everyone. Trying to keep this relatively to the point, as we have a lot of discussion tonight. I just want to touch on a few things on the recreation side. I think since we last met, we saw the end of our official summer season. with our camp program ending on August 12th after running for 9 weeks. We served about 350 campers each day, plus some 40 odd counselors in training. It was a challenging summer. I think our moment of silence at the beginning of the meeting was played a big role in sort of how the summer ended for our camp program. But instead of being ending in just in a feeling of total tragic loss, which was definitely part of it, we thankfully had a last day of camp that was our staff really came together and was united and made a real effort to end the camp season on a positive note, in spite of a lot of the tragedy and sadness that our whole staff was feeling from just finding out the day before the end of our summer. So it was a really strange season in the sense of having to go through that but then I'd say I've never seen a staff that was more tightly knit at the end of a summer. So that was something that was really, it was powerful and interesting to go through. And overall, all of that aside, it was a really successful summer. We faced a lot of challenges with our health restrictions, and we weren't able to do a lot of the things we would do in a traditional summer. But the staff really rallied and brought the highest level of energy and just did everything they could to really make it a magical summer for the kids, like we always try to do. And it really showed, and the kids and the parents were so grateful. The feedback we got was some of the more positive and appreciative feedback that I've ever heard from our participants. So that was nice to get that at the end of the summer. And I think I mentioned before, but this was my first summer going through camp as not just a staff member and director, but I'm also a dad. My 6-year-old was in Camp Acorn most of the summer, and it was really just a great experience to get to see our program from that perspective. And it made me very grateful to the staff and to Robin for just all of the hard work and creativity that she has put in that program. So that was really special for me. But the pool season continues on, and we've pivoted to our fall season, and it's been great. We've had so many phone calls with this hot weather, people being like, "Are you open? Do I need a reservation? Oh, I can't believe you're open. I can't believe I can just show up to your pool. I don't need to call in advance. I don't need to do anything special." And our ability to be able to pivot at the pool, to be able to offer normal programming and drop in recreation hours and drop in lap swim hours has really set us apart from almost all of the pools in the area. And we've had just new patrons from all over the place. Just so grateful to have a pool they can hop in when it's 85, 90 degrees out. And I've just been very, very pleased with it. The staff was able to, with John Paul and Robin and the part-time and the lifeguards, were able to pivot and add in these hours, change our situation from being all reservations, all restricted, to be able to do something very, very normal, and to just accommodate the summer pool demand in a way that a lot of places, for whatever reason, haven't been able to do. So I'm very proud of the staff, and it's been a great season. We've had swim lessons going that are filling up. We've had just a huge crowd every day, and it's been great. So fall season goes for about another month, a little less than a month, and we're just plowing through, and that's been a really, really good season. And then we've started a lot of our fall programs this last couple weeks with the start of the preschool, the after school program, and then a whole slew of other recreation classes for adults and kids. We're actually offering a very similar amount of programs to a normal season, in spite of the fact that we have some instructors that are wary of running classes indoors right now with COVID-19 still being a big factor, and they've been able to move outdoors. We've had to just be limited in some ways, but we have a very, very normal traditional fall level of programming going on right now. And I'm very pleased with staff for being able to pull all that together, and to all of our instructors who have been willing to come back and get all those programs jump started that were on hold for a lot of the past year. So that's been really fun to kind of get back to normal. The community center is well, not 100% back to what we would have, a couple of years ago. It's very bustling, and we've got a lot of things going on all the time. We did put out the Marinwood Review, our big catalog of classes. We committed to doing it in print. It went out in the mail to thousands of homes, and we've seen a lot of signups from that. And that is another thing that I'm really proud of with our department, is that we don't have a graphics design department. We don't have a firm we contract with. We don't have anyone on staff that's dedicated to doing that. A lot of other bigger cities and bigger departments do have staff that just sit there and create marketing materials and do graphic design. And there's only a few of us in the recreation department. And Carolyn, our senior administrator, she basically does the whole catalog herself from scratch, and in addition to all the other responsibilities, and it looks fantastic. It's on par with some of the best ones out there. And so I'm just very, very proud to be able to have something like that in-house without spending a bunch of money on it. And we're able to do that and be nimble. And we're one of the only people that committed to getting it out there. So the programs are running great, and we're really excited for what we have to offer this fall. And we do have just a couple events we're planning right now, and hopefully we'll be able to add more. It's kind of tricky right now to plan for public gatherings amidst the health situation. So we are treading carefully, and we're in touch with the health department, with a lot of other agencies, to figure out what makes the most sense and what's the safest route to take for offering event programming for our community. But right now we do have an art show scheduled for November. We are planning some revised version of a Halloween event that we'll be announcing very shortly. It definitely won't be a giant open house indoors, but we will have something that will be a lot of fun, and staff's working hard to come up with something that makes sense, that's a safe move for everyone. So we'll be announcing all the deals of that in the coming weeks. So yeah, that's on the rec side. Moving to the parks maintenance side of things. I heard something about a new phantom manager, and I'm really excited to find out who that is, as that would be amazing for our parks department. But we have 3 staff on the park staff. We did hire a new temporary employee a few weeks ago. His name is Jonathan. Hopefully you guys will get to meet him. And it's been great to have our department made whole again. He's learning the ropes right now, and Estevan and Marco are working very hard to get him up to speed and train him on all the things that we need him to know. But our staff used to be much bigger. We used to have 5-6 people with a dedicated parks maintenance director. So things were definitely scaled down in the last handful of years. But these guys, Estevan, Marco, have just really rallied to keep our parks maintained, keep our facilities up. The facility's getting older, but these guys work really, really hard to keep everything looking the way it does. Just a regular day-to-day and weekly tasks are a big job for a staff of 3, one of whom's brand new. In addition to all of their regular tasks, which I do list every one of my reports, just sort of like this is what they do, throughout the days and weeks. But in addition to that, this last month, these guys were seen rebuilding open space fences out on Kernberry. They were cutting up trees that had fallen on the path. And thanks to Stephen, he did point one of those out to me over the weekend, a couple weeks ago, for us to find that. These guys replaced some sump pumps in the pump room pit. You've seen the fencing out at the park. They're rehabilitating the turf, seeding, soiling, doing aeration, fixing irrigation, and they extended the retaining wall at the parks maintenance facility, and then a big project that involved a lot of the last couple of weeks was we are replacing or upgrading a water pipe in the park that is undersized for our needs. That involved renting a big excavator, digging a big trench. They're out there soldering pipes, running all new pipe along the length of the park, and that's been a big project. They did a great job, and so these 3 guys have a lot on their plate, and I am extremely amazed at what they're able to get done. So just want to kind of appreciate Marco and Estevan and our new guy Jonathan for everything they've done this past month. It's been a really busy month, and it's been kind of a whirlwind, but they've been doing great with that. So That's what I wanted to cover mainly. I'm happy to answer any questions though.
That's a lot of work. Thank you.
I have one question and I just, and I know this is the wrong place to look, but on Nextdoor, there was a few comments about the sprinklers going off during the day. And it's sad to see how instantly everyone just goes so negative as if we're not following guidelines. And I understand that that's just human nature and that's how the world works right now. But is there any way, like, I'm assuming that we do follow the regulations and we are using recycled water. Is there a way to like just put out signs or whatever while we're doing all this work through a drought so it kind of quiets the talkers?
Yeah, we have some signs up. Oh yeah, we definitely could put some more up, especially in the areas that we're watering, you know, during the middle of the day and that would maybe raise red flags for people concerned about the drought. We could definitely put some out, especially in the areas that are fenced off or they're getting a lot more water right now. I think that's probably a really good idea. But yeah, we can
I
do
just
that.
want to keep their complaints. I don't want them going to the water department and then Eric's getting reports. You know what I mean? I'm trying to head this off before too much work needs to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. We can definitely increase some of the communication out there.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
I just have a quick one, and I think I've had this answered before, but like a million years ago. On my extensive commute to Miller Creek Middle School, when I cross over the Green Bridge, I know isn't that like, apart from the tennis courts, which I know we maintain, is it the job of the school district to maintain the vegetation over there?
Which part specifically are you?
I'm thinking like, as I snake over the bridge and cut by the tennis courts, I can't remember if it's the school district guys that take care of the vegetation, like right by the tennis courts. It's just, it tends to grow up a little bit. And right now that trail is, I would say, like 2/3 blocked. But I think it's usually the school district guys that do that, right?
Yeah, they hit that up. I mean, there's times when, you know, we'll go out there and do some of the things, like if it's directly stuff's growing into the courts, we'll take care of that to keep the
Right.
courts clear. Stuff that's, you know, if trees are growing over the path or things, you know, it gets a little, the property line is
Okay.
kind of crisscrosses there. But yeah, typically the school's out there maintaining that
Right.
to some degree, but we do
Okay,
hit some of that up
I
as
see
well.
those guys all the time. I'll chat with them. I just couldn't remember. It popped into my head right now. Thank you very much, Luke. You and your staff do an amazing job.
Thanks, Chris.
Who bulldozed the bike jump there? Was that the school?
The
That
one,
was
oh, sorry, go ahead. Oh, I was just clarifying which one you're referring to, Bill, the one on that
The
side of
one
the bridge.
about, let's see, when I'm trying to remember when my son was, so at least 10 years ago.
Was
There
when
was
they
a big-
put the new
Right
path in. They replaced the path.
Yeah,
They
when they
removed the
had
dirt.
it was right where the tennis courts were.
I think technically
old-
that was third party, wasn't it? Because it was
Big old mound,
trying to think. It was Cal Harris that did it.
was it?
He's the one who organized the project. So I think that was more like school district-y third party.
Okay.
It's not the same people that filled the hole in the fireman's barbecue area when that used to have a dip there too.
We're taking away all
Sorry,
the bike jumps.
Wait,
No more bike
wait, did
jumps.
I just age myself?
I would say that I
Um,
know that the parks maintenance staff has over the years done a lot of you know, it's a little bit of a cat and mouse game, but going out and knocking down, you know, rogue jumps and stuff that gets built out there. But I'd say I'm sure there's been other parties that have dealt with that as well.
Okay. I'm just curious as to which. Cool. Any other?
Nope, just thank you for all you guys do.
Anything from the public?
Yeah, 1 second, Bill.
Yes, hi, and hi, Luke. And I want to first, talk about, I've been talking about this this person whose core competency is in practical matters, understanding maintenance, understanding construction, understanding open space, understanding environmental issues, and I call that person a caretaker. I recognize that, you know, you do the best you can, but your core competency and an excellent competency is as a rec manager, and you've kind of been pressed into service when Gary left to oversee the maintenance department. I just don't think we have that hands-on individual that's interested in our open space and has the ability to solve the many problems. You know, just calling an expert and calling for consultants, well, that's pretty easy task, but it's very expensive. You know, I think I imagine any large estate, 800-acre estate, who has a caretaker, that has an individual that really knows basically everything from A to Z on how to get things done. And that's really what I was referring to. So please don't take that as a slight to you or your staff, who I know also works hard. But I do think that because the maintenance, there's a lot of maintenance that doesn't get done. I do think that either we need to hire more people or we need to redirect our resources, because it's more than we have more stuff to do than is actually getting done. With regards to the rec program, I don't know anything about the rec program. The pool I have great interest in. I'm very disappointed I haven't been swimming this summer. I usually swim all the time. And I want to stress once again that you've made it very, very expensive for lapsed swimmers like myself, who are part of the community, to have affordable access to the pool that we pay taxes for. I kind of resent the fact that so much of that pool time is being given over to people from outside our district. I do think that that's a Marinwood Park, Marinwood CSD asset, and it should go to the people who live here first. So I'm looking forward to next year, maybe a discussion and a commitment to restore our historical access to the pool, the lap swimmers in particular. Thanks.
Thank you, Stephen. Is there anybody else, Eric? I guess.
No, sir.
Never. Thank you, Luke.
Thank you.
The date of the next Park and Recreation Commission meeting is September 21st. Okay, on to board member items of interest, requests for future agenda items.
Everyone, if I may.
Go, Lise.
Thank you. So, and this is kind of the second, I don't know, point or just item that I wanted to bring up when we were discussing the fires earlier. And I don't know if this is the right forum, so please kibosh me, redirect me if this isn't the place. However, the cell phone reception in many parts of Lucas Valley, specifically as you get further west to upper Lucas Valley, is it's always been kind of a nuisance. And you know, I've lived here for, you know, close to 10 years at this point. It's always been this way, and again, a nuisance. But when situations come up like these types of emergencies, you know, power outages were also an issue as well. But when something like a fire comes about, and you know, we realize that there's just not we can't get in touch with each other, and people can't be shared the information about something so dangerous, where an action is needed. I just wonder if there's any way that we can start the discussion about how we can change that, and if we can change that, and get cell service to a place where it's safe in our community.
Yeah.
I don't personally know that the district itself would have any pull nor authority in this, but I can certainly bring it up to the Marin County OES office. I mean, we've done this before in the past. I kind of appreciated hearing Chief Windrum talk earlier saying, hey, we were out there in the middle of this incident and we were having problems with, what is some basic communication, because this is kind of a dead zone. I think there's like one carrier who has a tower in that area, and I think it's like Sprint, I think they're the ones that work. I know that if I'm, out front of the community center and pointed south by southwest with my other arm pointed in the opposite direction, I can sometimes get a signal. I'll definitely speak to the chief, as well as, kind of bringing this back up to the OES. At the end of the day, cellular carriers are private companies, so I don't know what kind of obligation they have to fill these little pockets, but we can try to follow up with them and see. They would have some pull more than us, especially from an emergency response standpoint. But that would be my avenue, and I'm happy to pursue that a little bit again and see if now that we've had an incident, now that we've had first responders who, lack basic cell phone use in trying to communicate, how do we kind of go about this? Is there some more pressure that could be put? I don't know the answers to it, Lisa, but the Office of Emergency Services for Marin County certainly would know more than I would about it.
Well, I know about 10 years ago, the issue came up about building a cell tower here, and
No one wants it.
it raised all kinds of ire from the community.
But nobody wants it until they need it.
Till they
Like
need
that's
Right.
the hard-
I wonder if the perspective would be different as of
Right.
now than it was back then.
Maybe, but that was such a long time ago. I remember when we first moved in here and we had AT&T and the kids were swimming at the pool and there was nothing. You had to walk out to the parking lot to get a bar. And that's why we switched to Sprint finally, because
Yeah, well, and I know with MIRA, the Marin Emergency Radio Authority, this is a large reason, part of the reason why they're also upgrading at some point in time to this, next gen, which by the time it's done, will probably be old gen.
wasn't that 5 years ago?
It's still, yeah.
And the
But,
white boxes that we got that
But
didn't
one of
go
the
off.
primary towers is actually going to be on Big Rock Ridge, so it might be an opportunity there to, just in terms of adding, cellular to it as well. I don't know, but these are all avenues that could be pursued, and Mira actually might be a decent venue by which to bring that up, considering the players that are involved in Mira consists of a lot of emergency services people and things like that. I mean, I think that's your best angle of getting traction. Unfortunately, it's just such a small population. I don't know that, in terms of like AT&T or Verizon looking at it, they're like, what's my ROI on this? I get a handful of extra subscribers, but I think your best bet avenue is looking at this from an emergency access response and accessibility standpoint. So I'm happy to bring that up. I'm happy to reach out to the OES department too. I have relationships with them and just ask, hey, is there anything here that can be done on this level?
What about also
Thank
maybe
you.
looping in Damon on that and just trying to get him behind that as well?
Sure,
Damon
yeah,
Connolly.
I mean, that might be a decent place to start from the beginning too, and just say, Damon, look into this for us.
You have constituents who can't call each other during a wildfire.
Right. Yeah. No, all that for sure. It's a good.
I don't
suggestion,
know if it's a carrier issue or if it's a structure issue that we do or don't want to have constructed in our neighborhoods. I think that's kind of a piece of it too, really knowing why we don't have the coverage.
Right.
Yeah, I don't
think
know
it's-
why.
I think
why-
it's both.
Yeah, I know that people who have Sprint and their affiliates, their phones work. And I
Yeah.
know people who have AT&T and Verizon, their phones don't.
I have Verizon and my phone works just fine.
Yeah, but if you go,
AT&T
if
does
you go
not.
up the block a couple blocks, will it?
Yeah, if you come to my house, Devon, it's not going to work unless
Yeah.
you go into our
Well,
little router.
and 20 years ago, AT&T didn't even work in Marin County. I mean, in Marinwood. So
No.
like rule of thumb, if you got my voicemail right away, call the house phone because my cell phone wasn't working. So that's
Well,
just
let me
how-
follow up and
it's
see if
been
we
an
can get some
ongoing.
traction. I think Damon Connolly is a good first step there too, and I'll definitely let him know that this came up at a board meeting in response to this thing. And what does he know, and how can he help?
He may put it into the planning commission.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what the barriers are. Everything I say is just conjecture and
Yeah.
not educated. So
Okay.
And then can I
Thank
just
you.
have, thank you. Can I just add one more thing? Are we adding the radios that we have? Are we adding that to the fire commission?
yeah, I'm sure
Topic,
that I'll
since
talk
it's
to
supposed to be
Steve
emergency?
Barak, who's the chair on that.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, that's not our program. That's through Fire Safe. So I imagine he'll want to talk about it, but we'll certainly reach out to Fire Safe, who I don't know that they're the ones who kind of lead the it's not a grant program per se, but led that pilot study.
Mhm.
So, and I think they did that a little bit in coordination with the sheriff's office and OES as well. So let me, kind of reach out to them and just say, hey, what kind of information can I get? We're getting some questions from the people who are part of our study here.
Well, had we have had a fire commission, it would have been probably added to that agenda, but that's okay. So thank you.
Anybody else? Public.
Oh, wait, sorry, it was taking me a second to unmute. Just an update on whatever happens with trying to get a study for the trail that we had talked about, and
Yeah, I'll give you an update on that.
and then just to reflect the public's comments, if Chief White can have a written up report about the Mount Lassen fire, that would be great.
Yeah, he's intending on including that for sure. And he usually tries to cover the month prior.
I know.
And that did happen to happen in that month, but he's certainly, I think, looking to have some sort of a summary written report in it as well. I expect them back hopefully within the next couple of weeks.
Okay, just wanted to make sure since the public requested.
Yep, no problem. 1 second. Anything else? Great. Okay, 1 second, Bill.
All right.
Hi, I just wanted to talk about cell phone service, Lisa. We actually have a lot more mini towers all throughout the valley, and you can see them attached to phone poles. They're like upside down cones, and there's actually one at the corner, like right in front of the tennis courts. It's sort of near the tennis courts, but if you look up at the telephone pole, you'll see something that looks kind of weird. And I think you're absolutely correct. You want to make a connection with Damon Connolly, because these requests do get made at the county level and granted at the county level. And we're the last ones to hear about this. There was a lot of talk about 5G in the neighborhoods. And I don't know where 5G is currently in Marin County. I know it was encountering some resistance, but perhaps it would be proper for Eric to draft a letter of concern signed by all of you representing the concerns of all of the community of the lack of cell phone service, especially during an emergency. I believe that'll get Damon's attention, and I think you could get him to carry water on that issue wherever it needs to get made to get us more cell phone towers. So the technology has changed. It's not like the old cell phone towers, big, tall cell phone towers. Everything is really small and unobtrusive. Well, unobtrusive in the fact that it's a cell phone tower, and 5G apparently has all kinds of spy capabilities. I don't know, but 5G is a concern of people. But if we want better communication in the valley, we're going to need more antenna. And so I'm glad you brought that up. So that's all I actually wanted to say. I'm encouraged by the good discussions tonight, and look forward to a better community tomorrow. So let's not forget, we can make this place more beautiful. Let's have a can-do attitude. Let's not say we only have $29,000 to build a trail. Let's say, hey, we've got $29,000 to build a trail. Let's build the best damn trail we can build. And that's how we grow. So thanks.
Thanks, Stephen. That concludes, and I'm on to I, which would be entertaining a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Oh,
Welcome back, Tiffany.
yeah.
I've been here the whole time.
Sorry to
I
wait.
know.
Sorry to wake you up.
Yeah.
Board President Shea,
I.
Director Case,
Aye.
Director Kilkenny,
I.
Director Oyserman,
Aye.
Director Ruggieri.
Hi.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks
Thank
all.
you.
Thank you all.
Night, you guys.
Good night.
Hmm.